Danica Baines, welcome to the
Thank,
Authentic Human Podcast. Thank you for being here.
thank you so much for having me.
So, this experience is typically a choose your own adventure, and you get to decide, I don't know really anything about you, which is really good for me. Um, And ultimately, you can decide if you want to have a conversation with your soul, if you want to ask your soul specific questions, if you just want me to go in and share what's there. What would you, or anything? You can literally choose any experience. You can talk to anybody. It doesn't even have to be your soul. So
Mhm.
tell me what experience you would like to have today.
Gosh, let me see where I feel pulled to. I think I would love to see or hear what you see,
Okay.
if you
Okay.
see anything. And
Okay.
yeah,
Perfect. So let's go in. Let me see. So, okay. So right away, there's a lot of energy around you, but then it went right in to the digestive system and the reproductive system. So like zeroed in right away.
yeah,
Um, which is really interesting. So lots of movement in there, but also there's lots of healing going on in there. So digestive system is, represents relationships, our relationships with other humans, with ourself, with stuff, with money, with everything, right? So that's a really big one. And I feel like that's going to be um, it's going to be a theme for your 2025 in the sense that you're building a stronger relationship with the aspects of yourself that were out of touch with your potential. And, there's a lot of you, like the way they're showing a lot of the old you, okay? Because
mhm,
ultimately, right, like we won't be the same people tonight when we go to sleep that we were when we woke up, right?
totally.
So,
Yeah.
that's what I mean by old you. But there's a lot of the old you that you you chose to represent yourself in a way that it was to please others, to make them more comfortable with the situation. And ultimately, over the last few years, you've done so much work, like deep, deep, getting into the icky bleh stuff, the part where there's like shame and guilt hidden, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and you started to pull out the pieces that you recognize, like they're showing me you had this massive growth and this massive awareness of how to extinguish, if you will, the fear and shame of allowing yourself to be who you are in spite of other people's opinions, which is a really masterful, it really is, right? There's a level of mastery when you come through that you're like, oh, I'm a totally different person. And even
Yeah,
though it looks the same on the outside, right? And you're still having conversations with people that you've known for 20 years,
right.
everything feels different.
So different. Yes.
Okay.
That all lands
So,
for me.
yes, that is brilliant.
Yeah.
So, what they're showing is that now it's going to speed up, and speed up in the sense that you're in the process of coming around the corner. And what they're showing me by coming around the corner is it's like you've been driving down the same road for a long time, looking at your stuff, pulling it out. It's like weeding a garden, but
Mm,
taking out everything that doesn't belong. And you're just coming up to that curve part where you're hitting the end, where you look back and you're like, yeah, there's nothing here that I don't want to be here now.
yes.
And at the same time, it's like, okay, but where are we going now? What are we going to do with this version of Danica who understands who she is, who knows, what the impact that she wants to make in the world, right? That, how are you going to build that mountain? That's
Mm,
what they're they're showing. Does that feel
Yes. Yep. Totally.
okay?
Yeah, this
Awesome.
all makes sense.
So what they're saying is it's about scaling back in the sense of the vision. Okay, now it doesn't mean don't have the big vision. What it means is when you when we have that big vision of this is who I'm meant to be in the world, it's really hard to go from flat land to the top of a mountain.
Hmm.
You can't go there in your brain, right?
Right.
Like it's okay to have the vision. It's important to have the vision. But if you don't scale it back to in the sense of, okay, well, what am I going to do today that gets me closer to building and scaling that mountain?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're saying by scaling it back is every day bite-sized pieces that bring you closer to making that mountain yours.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is what you're learning to master now is growing. It's self-mastery in the sense of growing into becoming a master. And they're using that word master over and over and over again. I don't know if that's a word that is something that is familiar in your vocabulary. It is not typically something I
No.
use. So
No.
it is 100% part of your space in your energy. And that's really cool because that may be a word you want to integrate, that self-mastery piece that for
Hmm.
those who are looking for that, it's they keep showing me like a lock with a key, but it's like it's a precious metal and it is heavy and it is aged in the sense that it's earned its right to be there and
Okay.
it's ancient. And so you're you've come to the place where you're holding the key and you know how to put it in the lock
Hmm.
and open the door and look inside. And that's going to be part of what you're going to be helping others do moving forward at a different level because you're ready to go to that level.
Yeah.
Does this make sense?
Yes, this makes so much sense. I'm so interested that they brought us here. I love this.
I never know where it's going to go and it's always fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what okay, so there's a few different pieces. Um, gosh, okay. So I'm also seeing they're showing me a male, but the energy is more like a brother. It's very much like sibling rivalry in that sense of partnership. And it's they just all I keep hearing is let him in, let him in, let him in, let him in, let him in. Um, because here's the other part is when we go on this journey of finding ourselves, we become a bit of a warrior
Mhm.
because you have to fight those demons yourself. There's nobody else who can go inside
Yep.
and recognize the deep, dark crevices that have been kept hidden.
Hmm.
And you do have to be a warrior to get through, to have the courage to see those things, right?
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to be a warrior. And what's happening and what's happened in a lot of your relationships, friendships, all of that is you've become the warrior. The way they're saying it is you become the warrior princess and princess in the sense of you've risen above where you were
Okay.
in life, like in energy. And so what happens is the people around you don't always know how to connect with you
Mm-hmm.
anymore. So they're so that it's an interesting dynamic. So what I'm seeing is a couple different dynamics playing out is they are trying to entice you almost, if you will, with the old dynamics of how you used to hang out together and the things you used to do.
Hmm.
And because you still love them and you still, want to be around them,
Yeah.
and yet there's a part of you that you are that warrior princess so to speak, and then you're like, okay, well, I'll come out of that and I'll play with you and then I'll go back into it when I come home or after or when I can.
Sure.
So you see those two dynamics is they are asking you to do that and you're saying, okay, I'll play.
Mm.
And so this is the part that is it's like literally coming around that corner, right? So you're literally you can't see ahead, you don't know what's coming. And that's where it's like, okay, so the next step is instead of looking into the deep depths of you, now it's I got to try different versions of me out in the world.
Okay.
This new me, and I've got to um like use that muscle. Like you're going to strengthen it, right? It's right
Hmm.
now it's awkward. It's awkward trying to be this version of you that has so much awareness of self and so much awareness of existence. And, you have an unwavering belief in human potential, is what they're
Mm.
showing me. And it's hard to carry that into relationships that you've had since before you went through your transformation. Is this
Yes.
making sense?
Hmm. Yep.
So there's a part of you that's nervous. And that's healthy. That's you should be. If you're not nervous, then it doesn't matter, right? The
Yes.
thing is, we get nervous because these relationships count. They matter, that you want to take them with you. Okay. And so what they're saying is now the amount of hope and the amount of faith and the amount of determination and courage that you had to use to see your stuff,
Hmm.
it's allowing yourself to shift it and put it into those relationships. That you have hope and faith and courage and belief that these relationships have the potential to move forward as well into
Hmm.
the greatness that they're meant to experience.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean, you have to have all these deep, insightful conversations all the time. But what it does mean is you don't change who you are and what you feel and how you share that when you're with them.
Yes.
Okay. So
Hmm.
that's going to be a big, huge part of the next few months. And that's going around the curve. Okay. When you come through that, you'll be at a new level of conscious awareness, which you will then be broadcasting a fullness of on both sides of I can see inside of me, but I also take that into this new world and this new
Yes.
life. And so then what will happen is it's like I can hear them. It's like all these locks just start click, 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 like the keys just turn, turn, turn. And it's like thousands down the row. And
Okay.
what that's showing me is then you'll be ready to hold space for thousands of people at the same time to help them move through that.
Hmm.
Hundreds of thousands is what they're saying.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you'll be ready,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And the reality is, you already know that you're destined for that. It's not shocking. It's exciting, right? It gets
Yeah.
that, like, it's cool. This is exciting. Like, I've been always known. And it's like, okay, it's closer. I did all the work and it's closer.
Yes.
Now you have just a little bit more work to do. This is the part where you get to have fun. It's not looking at it like, oh my gosh, they're going to think I'm crazy if I say this. If you feel the energy when you're with someone to whatever the energy is,
Hmm.
share it, right? When
Yeah.
you're talking to someone and all of a sudden you feel the energy drop because you're like, oh, I just said something that they did that did not align. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh boy, oh,
Yep.
that was a rock. Boom. Right? Instead of going, okay, I'm going to change the subject and make it really lighthearted,
Yep.
go, what did I say that just made you uncomfortable? Because I felt that and I don't want you to feel that way.
Right.
I don't want this between us in this relationship because this relationship is too important to me.
Hmm.
See, it's having the courage to go in that direction rather than before, like the people pleaser is, let me make it lighthearted so we can bring it back to where it was and you're not upset. And
Yep.
it's having that courage to, and it's okay because this is where now you're going to start the bigger conversations, but in really simple ways so that it's going to make sense to them,
Okay.
right? Because now
Yeah.
you've said, I just felt that. You felt uncomfortable by what I said. Help me understand.
Hmm.
Help me understand. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I mean, gosh, you have such an incredible, they keep showing me this beautiful bird. and I don't even know what kind it is, but it's it's less about the bird itself. It's more about the feathers and the quietness. And yet there's so many different colors and they're vibrant. It's almost like you change colors, but it's recognition that it's light and it's you're in such deep alignment with universal energy
Okay.
that everything you do matters. And so when you change the narrative in your conversations, you're going to find that your connection to the universe it skyrockets
Mm-hmm.
because you're holding space for other people in a way that you've learned to hold it for yourself.
Yes.
And that's a universal gift. So when you start broadcasting universal energy in that way, the universe wants to bring it back to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it's going to come back in abundance as well.
Okay.
Do you understand? You know what I'm saying? Because this
I
is
do.
like,
Yes, I know exactly what you're saying. It all makes so much sense. And it's all so interesting because I've been getting that same message just within the last couple of weeks. Like everything you just said, I'm feeling is true for myself. Even the take a step back. That's a message I've been receiving. And it's actually something I just implemented in my own work. I actually said, you know what, I don't know why, but I know that this is right now. And I was like trusting that, my own spirit team sees something that I can't see. And so I did that. And so it's very validating for you to come forward with that message for me as well, because it feels like, okay, it was right. And I'm just trusting that, there are a few more things that I need to figure out and kind of be in before I take this next step. So
yeah,
that makes sense.
100%. It's beautiful. And what you're also going to find and see is the intention that your intention to follow the energy and to follow the awareness that you had. You're in that process of creating a new foundation, which that's why you're stepping back, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But it's going to be stronger than anything you've experienced before, which means you have to put more effort into recognition of what you want and what's important to you
mm-hmm.
to get there, right?
Right.
Along the way, right? So like they're showing me like, if there's a day where it was amazing, but you did a little too much, so you're feeling too tired at the end of it, or there's a week where it was just so incredible and all these things happened, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, but this piece was missing. It's honoring that, continuing to honor and not getting so caught up in the smaller details that take you out of, right? So it's consistent. Like they're just showing me creating a visual of what your foundation feels like.
Right.
So that, solid comfort, joy, calm, peace, whatever and having that visual, like like have it on your phone, save your screensaver, wherever it reminds you of, okay, right. So I'm in this space right now. So that way, every time you step out of that space, it'll be a reminder to go, oh, okay, right. What is it that I can do to bring myself back into that space?
Yes.
Because you're so good. You're so good at feeling energy. It's
Yes.
just, right. And there's a lot of like, there's that common misbelief that, being an empath, right? Feeling energy deeply is a deficit.
Mm-hmm.
But we're all empaths.
Right.
The people who don't feel are the ones who've turned it off because it had gotten overwhelming at some point. And those who feel deeply and allow themselves to be overwhelmed or hurt or damaged, right, by others. Not saying this is you, I'm just saying in
Yeah.
general, right?
Right.
Like that they're just not using their feeling power properly. You
Mm-hmm.
have an incredible ability to use yours properly.
Mm-hmm.
That is also another window, another pocket of there's a lot of people out there who see being an empath and feeling as a deficit. And
Yes.
you can do a lot of good in that part of the world where they need to understand that. They need to understand the the universal way to feel rather
Yeah.
than the human way to feel where it goes into the emotions and it's overwhelming, right?
Yes. Right.
It's also part of it's one of your superpowers. It's
Mm.
understanding that fine line, right? And it's recognizing, right? I think a lot of people use the word boundaries and we don't want boundaries. We don't want boundaries, but they go to boundaries because they don't want to feel. So then they
Mm.
use boundaries. But when you understand how to feel universal energy, you don't need boundaries because you recognize what feels right and you move in that direction. You don't
Yeah.
need to tell somebody else what they can and can't do around you
Mm.
because you are controlling your experience and your energy and your vibration and what comes in and doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not about telling other people, right?
Yeah. It's interesting because it's taking me back to the word that you were using, that mastery, that just like the mastery of my own energy, which has felt like really the basis of the work that I've done on myself in probably the last 5 to 7 years was that, that understanding my own energy, my baseline energy,
Yep.
and not feeling so overwhelmed by it, because that's kind of the state that I had been living in as a deep feeler, was this like constant overwhelm and very superficial ways of trying to manage that. um and so I think that is like,
It's
that's what I'm
perfect.
thinking of. Yes,
Yes.
that really deep understanding of my own energy and how to move with it and not
Yes.
always be kind of at war with it.
Right. And
Yeah.
and because ultimately when you're at war with it, then you also become at war with others
Mm-hmm.
instantly, right? It's like,
Yeah.
is this person going to hurt me energetically? Are they going to give me too much? Are they going to expect too much from me? Whatever it is. So you've really mastered that, which
Thank you.
is, yes, thank you. Because when you do that, all of humanity benefits.
Yeah.
Even if you're not saying anything, every human benefits because your vibration went up, which
Mm,
means the vibration that we get to feel into, that we get to be aware of, it's higher, right? The vibration is higher, which means it's more accessible to more people.
yeah.
So,
Mm,
you know, this is what it's all about, right? And you're at this place where, we've spent the last 15, 20, 30, 40 years with few leaders in this world. And now we have a greater number of leaders, but we have a greater number of leaders because now the masses are in greater numbers that are ready for this awakening.
mm,
And it's important. And so it's not worrying about what someone else is offering. And maybe, you don't need to offer it because there's already a couple people doing it out there. There's a whole bunch of people doing it. Doesn't matter
right.
because your energy is exactly what a whole bunch of people on this planet need. There's 8 billion people. And the people who need Danica are going to find Danica because your vibration speaks right to their vibration.
Mm,
And it's an inner knowing that it's like a deep sigh of relief when they find you because it's this, oh, I just found my home. I just found my home. And it's like being welcomed in, right? With the most comforting and cozy sensation.
yeah.
And that's what you're going to be offering. And it's not worrying and trying to craft it to what you think they need to hear. It's allowing yourself to fully express the fullness of who you are, how you feel about existence and life, and what you genuinely believe the world needs to hear and feel. Because the people who need to hear and feel that are going to come,
Yep. Yeah.
right?
That makes sense. Yes.
It's quite beautiful, actually. Gosh, I love it.
Mm,
I keep seeing the locks, and like the locks are those big, ornate, um, like more ancient, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and then there's the little hole inside of it, like it's big and beautiful. It's all like it's decorative. And then the
Yeah.
keys are like, like 6 to 8 inches, and they've got all the ornate markings. But when you feel it in your hand, the key, it's warm. It's like that's what you're giving them. You're going to give them the key
Mm.
so they can look at the key, they can look on all sides of it and understand what the key is so that when they put the key in the lock, when you show them how to do that, it'll turn instantly.
Mm. I love that.
It's beautiful because there's a lot of people trying to open lock doors
Yeah.
and they don't know how to get in.
Yeah.
And so it feels to them like they're hitting their head against the wall, they're trying to bang it, they're trying to use their shoulder. And what you're going to do is show them an easier way,
Mm.
particularly as it relates to feeling the flow of energy, that self mastery of self discovery, right? Self discovery is in the energy. And you have that ability to show them, come on, come look. It's really easy to see when you just follow the energy.
Yes.
And you have that gift. You've done it. You've done that work. So you can pass it on.
Yeah.
And
You know,
it's time to start recognizing that you can do that
yeah. Yeah.
and the fullness.
Yeah.
Because right now, you're only honoring about 15 to 20% of what you have the ability to do.
Mm.
Because there's a
Yeah.
part of you that's too scared to say all of it. Because if you say all of it, remember those people back there who you can't connect to because you've risen above them? You feel like, I'm going to have to leave them behind. You're not. The right ones are going to celebrate you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're also going to open yourself up to more people who are at that level so that you can go higher because together you're going to support each other. And
Yeah.
that's what you want to create space for, right? That's why they're saying as you come around this bend and you're creating this new foundation, these are the things you want to think about. Is not that you don't love these people, it's that you love them enough to give them the opportunity to go with you.
Mm.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's just letting go of that anxiety that comes up when it's like, oh, I want to say this or should I say that? Letting that go,
Yeah.
letting it go. Because if you don't give them the opportunity to go, then they're going to have to wait for someone else to give them the opportunity. Why not be you?
Yeah.
And it's up to them to decide if they're going to come along or not. But if you do it in the way that you do, right? With that beautiful, the soft feather energy. It's beautiful. It's brilliant. You don't hide yourself like that bird with all the beautiful colors and flying. When I hear the wings moving, it's very, very quiet. So it's not, your intention isn't to disrupt where they are. Your intention is to show them the potential and the better opportunity and say, I'm here. If you want to come, I'm here. I'm
Mhm.
hanging out because it feels really good here. But I
Yeah.
also can't go back to the dark place because it doesn't feel good there.
Yeah.
So you just don't play. You don't even have to set the boundary that says, oh, I don't have to have that conversation, or I don't want to talk about that. It's just, oh, oh, I never thought about it that way. I actually thought about it this way, right? When someone says something negative or heavy, right? It's just, oh, I never thought about it that way. But it's not in a mean or demeaning because that's not in your nature.
Yeah.
But letting go of that anxiety that comes up when you're like, oh, I want to share how I really feel.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. Yeah. It's like when you think about the people pleasing that you were talking about, which is for sure a very large part of my history, but with all the work that I've been able to do, there's still often that catch. It feels like a catch, like what you're talking about with that anxiety or, that in the expression of myself and being true to myself and honoring myself. And I've done so much work around that. And most of the time, like 95% of the time, I am true to myself. But like that 5%, I still feel that catch where, or I'll say something and I'll be like, why am I saying this? Or, and so, but that's what it feels like. It reminds me of like this. it's like an old catch. It's like an old catch to that habit that is still sort of, you know, I'm moving through, and maybe that's coming around the bend. Maybe that will be left behind and, I won't feel that anymore. But I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And the reality is what they're showing me is you're going to keep going up. So there's always going to be a little bit of that sensation
Yeah,
because you're going to keep rising, but it's not letting it stop you from
right,
rising.
right.
That's the key, right? Is no matter what happens in your relationships, in the dynamics, in any situation,
Mm,
it's allowing yourself to continue to rise.
mhm.
Yeah. Feels so good, eh?
It does, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. So different. So different.
And also, they are showing me to ask yourself as well, because there's a few fears about it getting so big and so overwhelming. Because the thought of that, you need to look at what those are because they're not real fears. They're just illusions that your brain has told you based on what other people have said or what you've heard. The
Yes.
reality is, if you're meant to work with that many people, it's because that's what you're meant to do in the world. And there is an easeful and majestic way to do that, that it will work for you. So, right. So it's about allowing yourself to become aware of what the universe wants to show you through the energy again, right?
Mhm.
Of how you're meant to be doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. But they really want you to look because they're showing me there's three fears in particular that you have around that dynamic.
Okay.
And that's going to be part of your job as you go around that bend, so to speak, is looking at what your real fears are in relation to working with others
Mhm.
and then going even deeper and recognizing that it's not real, it's not true.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. That makes absolute sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're big ones. So
Yeah.
it's important. This is really important for your next phase. So
Mhm.
just allowing, and they don't want me to give them to you because it's not
Yeah.
right? Anyone who's gone through looking at your stuff, it's
Yep.
so much more powerful to feel the discomfort of feeling it yourself, like finding it. Like it's like deer in headlights when you get to the heart of something, right? And you're like, I always liken it to, I'm just like, when I see it in that level, I just want to take my skin off and disappear into the ethers of like non-existence.
Yes. Yes.
Right? It's
Yeah.
so much shame. It's like that's where that came from, or that's how that is inside of me.
Oh,
But it's that level of recognition that allows and allows for the transformation. It actually creates it, right? And
yes.
you
Yeah.
only know it if you've been in it.
Yeah.
Which, and
Yes.
I know you understand what I mean, because
Totally.
right, you've been in it for years.
Yeah.
And so that's why they're honoring not only where you've been, but there's three more big ones that specifically, three more big fears that specifically relate to you working with others and finding your comfort level of fulfilling your higher calling, your mission, if you will.
Yeah. 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 Okay. No, that's good to know. That makes sense. Like, that is one thing I have been sitting with and thinking about. It is a fear that comes up around reaching so many people.
Yep.
And I know I've uncovered one
Good
just
for you.
recently that I'm working through right now. But yes, I know that I mean, there's always deeper stuff. But yeah, there will be a few, I'm sure, that kind of are uncovered as I move through probably the next 6 months. So yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome. So, do you have any questions in particular now that we've sort of gone into that area? Is there anything, and it can be about anything. It doesn't have to be about what we talked about. It could be about something completely different.
Yeah. Um, hmm. I always feel like I have so many questions. It's hard to to be like, well, what would be the right question to ask right now?
The
And
question that comes to mind first.
yeah,
Just
I'm
go
still
for it.
sitting in this energy because I was sitting in it before our call as well, just sort of thinking about the take a step back, which has been a consistent message for me within, my own practice. I have been hearing this. So I'm thinking about that and sort of the like the way that I'm kind of picturing it is almost like a like a stop,
Yep,
start, where like I'm moving and I'm taking a step back. And then sometimes when I think about that, I think about, okay, I don't want to be holding myself back, I guess. You know what I mean?
I
Like from a
do.
place of fear. And so I don't know if you have if they're
Yep,
showing you any more clarity around that whole process. So
yep,
knowing kind of when to pull back a little bit
yep.
from a place of honoring myself and not from a place of fear, I guess.
Yes, it's perfect. Yes. As soon as you started talking, what they showed me is um, it's priorities is number
Yeah.
one. And what happens for you is you will start with priorities that are right for you, and then you will hone them by other people's perspectives, what they say, what you hear, what you come across, what you read, and then you change your priorities. So all of a sudden, they're not for what Danica needs, they're for what you think other people want.
Hmm.
So it starts with this big vision, right? It's
Yep.
big and beautiful, and then it gets watered down and watered down and watered down and watered down until you're in that position where you have to pull back and start again.
Hmm.
And then you have to make it big again. And then you make it smaller and you make it smaller and you make it smaller and you make it smaller. And you have to pull back and you have to
Hmm.
make it big again.
Okay.
That's been that process.
Yep.
So if you are, they're saying that what you need to do is get really clear on your priorities, your
Hmm.
non-negotiables,
Yep.
your time, right? How much time you're allotting to this or this person or this project or whatever it is. But you need to get so clear that they're non-negotiables. They're like on a whiteboard on your wall
Yep.
that when someone says something and you're like, oh, that's a non-negotiable. And then because not because you're going to put up a boundary, but because you're going to be able to then go, if this person's coming to me or I'm getting aware of this message, it's because that dynamic is in that person and they don't understand how to set non-negotiables. And
Okay.
my job is to help them do that. See how
Okay.
that difference is?
Yeah.
Okay. Because non-negotiables are this is the income that I am choosing to experience for myself.
Hmm.
This is the time that I am choosing to experience for myself.
Yeah.
And within that time that you're working, you give it everything you have. And then in the other time, you give yourself and your personal relationships and your home as everything you have.
Yeah.
Because when we don't have non-negotiables, right, we're sloppy in how we give. Because
Yeah.
then we end up giving too much over here and then we're exhausted. So we don't have enough to give us in the off time of work time, right? So that's why they're saying priorities have to be number one. Um, so I have a practice, and I've talked about this before. It's funny, I have it sitting right here because I was talking about it in one of my private groups the other day. But the areas of life that I look at that are my non-negotiables are health, wealth, love and relationship,
Hmm.
family, community,
Hmm.
spiritual journey, career vocation, and home.
Hmm.
And it is, can you hear me still really well or
Yeah.
no?
Yeah.
All of a sudden you went out, so they've changed my microphone. Anyways, it's all good. I'm
Yeah.
trusting that this will still be recording.
Okay.
Good. But ultimately, the when you look at those 8 areas and really feel, you know, what you want, but then look at what you've created right now in this moment, because then when you look at the difference between the two, that is what's going to help you understand what your non-negotiables are, but also what you've created and what needs to change,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's how we create non-negotiables,
Yeah.
by really deep recognition of what we've created.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's that curve. That's that building a new foundation. This is where humanity is, right?
Yeah.
2025, we are now building this new foundation. And if you really look at the understanding of that, this is for future generations of human existence. We are creating the new world.
Mm.
So you think about 5 generations from now. What do you want them to look back and go, Danica did this first for us?
Mm.
She
Yeah.
got it. And she knew that we needed this.
Right.
That's where you want to go.
Okay. Yeah.
How's that feel?
Good. It all feels good. It all makes sense. It feels aligned. It's absolutely where I'm at. You know,
I love it.
yeah.
That's fantastic. Awesome. So, where can people find you? What's
Yeah.
the best way? And we'll have it underneath the video too, so that everyone can click on it. But
Sure.
yeah, for those who
Everything
are just listening,
is my name. I'm mostly found. You can find my website, which is danicabaines.com. And then I'm on Instagram at danica.baines. Those are the two main places where I hang out.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for bearing a little bit of your soul to us
Mm.
and sharing yourself with us today. I deeply appreciate it. And please, let me know how you're doing. I'd love to hear.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was beautiful. I appreciate you giving your energy. I know that's a lot of energy. And for the messages and some clarity, it was all really great. Thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Tanika. Have
All right.
such a
Thank
good day.
you. You too. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this conversation, learned something, or received any benefit that you believe will improve your life, subscribe to our channel so I can serve you better by attracting unique guests and starting even bigger conversations. If you know you're meant to change the world, head on over to michellevickers.com, where innovators and thought leaders go for guidance, wisdom, inside information, and support they can trust. Until next time, stay curious.